What's going on, everybody? Today is Wednesday, October 27th. We've got a big show planned for you today. We're going to talk about threats against Congress members and why the Department of Justice only seems to act when they're called out publicly. We're going to talk about tornadoes down in Texas. We're going to talk about bomb threats at the Homeland Security building earlier today, plus so much more on this episode of Wake Up America.
News channel after news channel after news channel. Ever wonder why they report the same news? This is Wake Up America.
Brought to you by Citizen Stringer.
The media has become absolute lunacy. What makes us different? We just tell the truth. Daily headlines, politics, social issues, focusing on headlines that the mainstream media ignores. Conservative to the core and honest, sometimes to a fault. Unapologetically American. Welcome to Wake Up America with your host, Stephen Oatley.
All right, so I suppose we'll start off this day with a rally. We've been talking a lot about the Virginia election between Terry McAuliffe and Youngkin. And maybe it's just because I live here, so it's always on my mind. It's something we're always thinking about. But on October 23rd, former President Barack Obama spoke at a rally for the Democratic gubernatorial candidate Terry McAuliffe. In his speech, Obama referred to the platform of the Republican gubernatorial candidate Glenn Youngkin as a phony, trumped-up culture war and fake outrage that right-wing media peddles to juice their ratings. Is he referring, who is he referring to when he makes those comments? The first item he was referring to concerns the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Obama called the claims of election fraud baseless and conspiracy theories that led to the unrest that day. The other item he talked about was the idea that Youngkin was supporting parents to have a voice over school board, since McAuliffe has stated that parents should not have a say in school board decisions. Obama stated that the outrage over actions of a school board is unjustified, stating instead of anger at the school administrators and boards, parents should be making it easier for schools to give kids an education and for teachers to be safe in the classroom. Just recently in Loudoun County, the school board knew about the sexual assault of a girl in the Stonebridge High School restroom by a male student that is part of the LGBTQ plus ABC community. The father of the girl became outraged at the school board for trying to cover up the incident and later learned the same boy allegedly assaulted another girl at a different high school. The father was arrested for disorderly conduct at a school board meeting he attended. So crazy. This guy, it's just, people are so nuts. And it's propaganda. You know why? Because I've seen because I live in the D.C. area now, Northern Virginia area. So we see this. So I saw Barack Obama was there. I saw that quote on our morning news. They're not going to provide any other context. In fact, I watch the news every single morning. I have a cup of coffee every single morning. Pure Truth coffee, by the way. You should check it out. It's amazing. But we have a cup of coffee every day. My wife and I, actually, she's usually getting ready for work by then. But I have a cup of coffee and I sit and I watch the morning news. We hear about the January 6th shit. We hear about the race between Youngkin and McAuliffe quite a bit, because that's like a precursor to what's going to happen in 2022. If you didn't realize, it's a very important race. But we're not hearing a lot about you're not hearing anything about the Loudoun County School Board meetings. They're not talking about the sexual assault in the bathroom that happened. They're not talking about any of that stuff. They talked about the Loudoun County meetings once. And I think last night they talked about, or this morning, I don't believe they even mentioned the Loudoun County School Board meeting from yesterday, which was boisterous as well. Because parents were pretty pissed off that the school board is just corrupt as shit. There's no other way to say it. But I think it's really entertaining at just how dumb some people will. And as you watch the rest of the show, you're going to see, because I have a lot of examples of just how crazy some people are in this country. And we close out the this episode with a bunch of TikTok videos where we provide some commentary on some of these TikTok videos. And I tell you what, there's a couple of them that are going to leave your head scratching, where you try to figure out what the hell is wrong with America. All right. And pretty much every video on TikTok has me scratching my head saying, what the hell's wrong with America? But, these ones in particular, they're just crazy. But we've got a great show for you. So here's the next news story that we're going to talk about. Here's an interesting one. We talk about the Virginia race a lot because I live in Virginia, but have you been following what's been going on in New Jersey? There's a heated race there as well. And Project Veritas just opened the lid on that race, which we'll have to see what happens with the governor there and whether voters are going to react. But 1 week before Election Day, a campaign advisor for New Jersey Democrat Governor Phil Murphy is caught on video saying that the governor will wait until after he wins the election in November to impose vaccine mandates in order to win the votes of independent and undecided voters. On October 25th, Project Veritas released their latest expose containing hidden camera recordings that include a senior campaign advisor and manager for New Jersey Forward, a campaign project funded by the New Jersey Democratic State Committee, each stating that he would enforce the vaccine mandate after winning the election. The undercover journalist asked the senior advisor named Wendy Martinez about Murphy's plans, in which Martinez responds he's going to do it, but he can't do it before the elections. Confirming the reason for the delay, the journalist says the independents and the undecided would not vote for him if he did the mandates. Martinez nods and answers because they're all into that shit. My rights and shit, she says, and they don't care if they kill everybody. Right now, it's about him winning. Yeah, sorry, we're into that little thing called our rights. Like our constitutional rights, our rights as Americans. Oh, sorry, yeah, we are into that, you shitbird. Martinez is the president of Atabay Consulting Group and one of the state's top political consultants in ethnic voter outreach and organizing. She also serves as a public affairs director for the New Jersey Coalition of Latino Pastors and Ministers. Matthew Urbigerto is the digital manager for NGDSC's New Jersey Forward project. When asked about the possibility of the governor imposing a vaccine mandate, he indicated that he thought Murphy would do it, but qualified that by saying, I think the problem right now is because of the election season. He's not going to have people say, like, we're going to have a mandate now, because for some people, it's going to piss them off. Yeah, you think? Telling people what they can or can't do is going to piss them off. He goes on to say, once we have a win, like he's all right, guns blazing. Like, who cares? I'm in it. Let's do the mandates. Let's do this, XYZ, this douche canoe said. James O'Keefe, Project Veritas founder, wonders why politicians feel the need to hide this type of information from their voters if they stand so firmly behind their stances. O'Keefe said they look forward to hearing from the Murphy campaign and will be releasing a second video. And I believe that video is it actually probably already came out, was released at the same time this video is going to air tonight. In the meantime, on the same day of the first video's release, Murphy's campaign has claimed that two of his staff members were harassed in a parking lot by Project Veritas, saying earlier today two Latina staff members associated with the Murphy for Governor campaign and the New Jersey Democrat State Committee's Forward 2021 coordinated campaign were lured into a parking garage, ambushed and harassed by a team of 6 far-right extremists, including disinformation specialist James O'Keefe, Murphy campaign spokesperson Jarrell Harvey said. According to NJ.com, Murphy's team alleges that the staffers received a phone call from O'Keefe operatives who told them that one of the women's cars had been hit while parked in the campaign headquarters garage. They claim the journalists proceeded to swarm the two women, corner them in parked cars, and chase them as they attempted to protect themselves by walking towards building security. In a joint statement by Murphy and Governor campaign manager Molly Benito and NJDSC's executive director, Saley something, said it is absolutely outrageous for the safety of our team to be compromised by luring women into dark parking garages and ambushing them, causing serious distress and trauma at a time when people working on all campaigns should be allowed to do their jobs without fearing for their safety. This is criminal harassment, plain and simple. We are calling on Jack Sididari or something like that to immediately disavow the conduct of these far-right extremists and join us in denouncing James O'Keefe. We'll be seeing some of that interaction in the video tonight, I assume. It's pretty funny. And the guy, James Ciaratelli, is a Republican nominee. So the Murphy campaign is telling this guy that he's got to denounce this kind of activity. And I'll be honest. if you call someone, say your car's been hit in a parking garage to get them out there to do it, you're doing some shady shit. Okay. I didn't even know that happened until I just read this article live now. And that's some shady shit. And I don't stand by that at all. That's the kind of issue that I have with this kind of journalism. There's a much needed place for it because it seems like it's the only way we're actually going to actually find out what's going on in this country. But I just don't like the fact that people have to use these underhanded techniques to get to the truth. It would be just much better if politicians just didn't lie all the time, right? If big tech didn't lie all the time, all these companies that Project Veritas goes after, if they didn't lie all the time, you see that like there's a fly that's flying around, and that's why it's bugging me, and I can't catch it. I keep trying to be like a ninja and catch it, but I can't catch it. Anyway, here's the next story coming up. All right, so we talked about the sham hearing that took place earlier today, Oversight of the Department of Justice, where Garland got up there and testified. There were a couple of moments that resonate, and I'll play those in just a second. But we saw more of what we saw on Monday. On Monday, he appeared in front of a House committee where he just deflected all the answers. Here's some of the things that did stick out. Well, Garland tells Chuck Grassley that he's not going to dissolve a school board task force, even though the National School Boards Association apologized for the domestic terrorism letter that seemingly prompted Garland to create the task force in the first place. Tom Cotton erupted on A.G. Garland, saying, "Thank God you're not on the Supreme Court. You should resign in disgrace," which is pretty good. There's a lot of like trivial stuff that's happened here that not a lot of nothing. We didn't learn anything. We haven't learned. Garland claims he didn't know of the people who chased Senator Kyrsten Sinema into a restroom while filming her have been referred for federal investigation. We know that that's not going to happen. He said that today. This is obviously a recorded video. Right now, as I'm speaking now, Cory Booker is talking about something outside of what the whole meeting was about already. I mean, these politicians that are in office, they don't care about actually figuring out what the hell is going on with this country. They really don't. Here is Cotton's here's Cotton's little blurb to Garland at the end, which I think is the most important thing that came out of this whole damn hearing today.
This is shameful. This testimony, your directive, your performance is shameful.
Okay. That's not correct.
Thank God you are not on the Supreme Court. You should resign in disgrace, Judge.
All right, so I know earlier I said the best thing that came out of the hearing was the Tom Cotton statement out of the Garland hearing today, Oversight of the Department of Justice. And that's the problem with doing these recorded, is because more things happen. It's a long hearing. Ted Cruz in Garland went at it. Ted Cruz, I got to say, I'm going to play this in its entirety because I think it is amazing that people are trying to, or that Ted Cruz is trying to hold Garland accountable, and Garland refuses to answer. This video is also on YouTube, on my YouTube page. It's 4 minutes. Enjoy. That's all I have to say. Enjoy this.
You came before this committee in your confirmation hearing. You promised things would be different. I asked you specifically, quote, "Will you commit to this committee that under your leadership, the Department of Justice will not target the political opponents of this administration?" Here was your answer, quote, "Absolutely. It's totally inappropriate for the department to target any individual because of their politics or their position in a campaign." That was your promise just a few months ago. I'm sorry to say you have broken that promise. There is a difference between law and politics. And General Garland, you know the difference between law and politics. Law is based on facts. It is impartial. It is not used as a tool of political retribution. This memo was not law. This memo was politics. On Wednesday, September 29th, the National School Board Association wrote a letter to the president asking the president to use the Department of Justice to target parents that were upset at critical race theory, that were upset at mask mandates in schools, to target them as domestic terrorists. On the face of the letter was in repeated consultation with the White House, an explicit political consultation with the White House. That was on Wednesday, September 29th. 5 days later, on Monday, so right after the weekend, boom, you pop out a memo. giving them exactly what they want. Now, by the way, I understand that. In politics, that happens all the time. An important special interest wants something. Sir, yes, sir. We're going to listen to them. Let me ask you something, General Garland. In the letter, which you told the House of Representatives was the basis for this abusive memo targeting parents, how many incidents are cited in that memo?
I have to look back through the memo. I can't count it.
You don't know. How many of them were violent?
Again, the general report.
How many of them were violent? Do you know?
I don't know.
You don't know. And there's a reason you don't know. Because you didn't care, and nobody in your office cared to find out. I did a quick count just sitting here. During this hearing, I counted 20 incidents cited. Of the 20, 15 on their face are nonviolent. They involve things like insults. They involve a Nazi salute. That's one of the examples. My God, a parent did a Nazi salute at a school board because he thought the policies were oppressive. General Garland is doing a Nazi salute at an elected official. Is that protected by the First Amendment?
Yes, it is.
Okay. 15 of the 20 on the face of it are not violent. They're not threats of violence. They're parents who are unhappy. Yet, miraculously, when you write a memo, the opening line of your memo, in recent months, there has been a disturbing spike in harassment, intimidation, and threats of violence. You know what? You didn't look, and nobody on your staff looked. Did you even look up the 20 instances?
As I testified, the decision to send a memo is for an assessment.
Did you look up the 20 instances?
I did not read.
Did anyone on your staff look them up?
I don't know the answer, but it's not
But of course
memo.
you don't. In general, there's a reason. Look, you started your career as a law clerk to Justice Brennan. You've had many law clerks during the year, during your time as a judge. I was a clerk to Chief Justice Rehnquist. I'll tell you what, if I drafted an opinion for the Chief Justice and walked in and it said, there's a disturbing pattern of violence. Well, Ted, how do you know that? Well, I got an amicus brief here who claims it. You would fire a law clerk who did that. You're the Attorney General of the United States. This was not a tweet you sent. This is a memo to the Federal Bureau of Investigations saying, go investigate parents as domestic terrorists.
That is not what the memo says at all. It does not.
Is it what the letter says?
That is not what.
Is it what the letter says?
I don't care what the letter says.
You don't care. You said it was the basis of your memo. You testified under oath before the House of Representatives. The letter was the basis of your memo. Now you don't care about the letter?
The letter and public reports of violence and threats of violence. My memo says nothing about domestic terrorism, says nothing about parents committing any such things. My memo is an attempt to get an assessment of whether there is a problem out there that the federal government needs to resolve.
The letter on its face says the actions of the parents could be the equivalent to a form of domestic terrorism.
And that is wrong.
And asks the president to use the Patriot Act in regards to domestic terrorism directed at parents. This was the basis of your memo.
My memo.
The Department of Justice, when you're directing the FBI to engage in law enforcement, you're not behaving as a political operative because a political ally of the president says, hey, go attack these parents because we don't like what they're saying. Department of Justice, you did no independent research on what was happening, did you?
The memo has nothing to do with partisan.
Did you do independent research?
The memo has.
Did you do independent research?
The memo has nothing to do.
Okay, you're
with
not answering that
politics.
question. You've testified you know nothing about the violent sexual assault that happened in Loudoun County, even though it's one of the bases in this letter.
I read about it since then.
Okay. You told the House last week you knew nothing about it.
Not know at the time, no.
Okay. This week, the court concluded that a 14-year-old girl was violently raped by a boy wearing a skirt in the girls' restroom. The school district covered it up, released the boy, sent him to another school where he violently raped another girl. The father, who Mr. Hawley just showed you, was the father of the first girl. He was understandably, do you understand why a parent would be upset when your daughter is raped at school, the school board covers it up, and then lies to you and claims there have been no assaults, we have no instances? of assaults in our bathroom, and that was a flat-out lie, as the court concluded this week. Do you understand why the parent would be upset?
Absolutely, and any expressions of upset are completely protected by the First Amendment.
Except you just called him a domestic
I
terrorist.
never called him that. That's not correct.
This letter calls him a domestic terrorist. You based a direction to the FBI, an official direction from the Attorney General, on this letter. And I'll tell you what, the NSBA is so embarrassed of this letter, they've apologized for it and retracted it, but you don't apparently have the same willingness to apologize and retract what you did. Let me ask you something else. A big part of this letter is that they're upset about parents not wanting critical race theory taught. Your son-in-law makes a very substantial sum of money from a company involved in the teaching of critical race theory. Did you seek and receive a decision from an ethics advisor at the Department of Justice before you carried out an action that would have a predictable financial benefit to your son-in-law?
This memorandum is aimed at violence and threats.
I just asked a question. Did you
It
seek an
has
ethics
no predictable
Did you
effect
seek
on-
an ethics opinion?
It has no
Did you seek an ethics opinion? Judge, you know how to ask questions and answer them. Did you seek an ethics opinion?
You asked me whether I sought an ethics opinion about something that would have a predictable effect on something. This has no predictable effect in the way that you're talking about.
So if critical race theory is taught in more schools, does your son-in-law make more
This
money?
memo has nothing.
If critical race theory is taught in more schools, does your son-in-law make more money? Yes or no?
This memorandum has nothing to do with critical race
Will
theory
you answer
or
if you
any
sought an
other
ethics
kind
opinion?
of curriculum.
Will you answer if you sought an ethics
I am
opinion?
answering the best I can.
Yes or no? Did you seek an ethics opinion?
This memorandum has
Did
nothing.
you seek an ethics opinion?
This memorandum has nothing to do with.
General, are you
critical race
refusing to answer if you sought an ethics
theory. I am
opinion?
telling you that there's no possible.
So you're saying no. Just answer it directly. You know how to answer a question directly. Did you seek an ethics opinion?
I'm telling you that if I thought there was any reason to believe there was a conflict of interest, I would do that. But I cannot.
Why do you
imagine
refuse to answer
a
the question?
conflict
Why
of
won't you
interest.
just say no?
I'm sorry.
You're not going to answer the question?
I'm sorry. Ask the question again.
Did you seek an ethics opinion?
I'm saying again, I would seek an ethics opinion in.
So no is the answer,
where I
correct?
thought there was a conflict.
Senator, your time is up.
Let the record reflect the Attorney General refuses to answer whether he sought an ethics opinion, and apparently ethics are not a terribly high priority in the Biden Justice Department.
I don't think that's a fair reflection of what I said.
Then answer the question.
Senator, you've gone way beyond any other senator's time. I think you ought to be at least respectful of other senators at this point.
Mr. Chairman, do you know the answer whether he sought an ethics opinion?
I think you have exchanged that so many times, we know where we stand. Now, we have a request for 3-minute rounds, and I have one from Senator Hirono and Senator Lee and Senator Booker. I'm sorry, and first, of course, Ranking Member Grassley. We're going to stick to 3 minutes. It's been 4 hours since the Attorney General's been in that chair.
A lot of you guys were asking me for a look at the store here in Woodstock. So one thing you're going to notice here in the next week or so, we're going to actually offer pickup during limited hours. So if you order coffee, you order a shirt or something, and you live nearby and you want to come say hello and pick up your stuff, we're going to start offering that at some point next week when you do place an order. It's going to be limited hours, so we'll have to figure that out. But I did make a short little video. Enjoy the rock music, but I made a short little video that shows the store and all that stuff. So check that out, and we'll be right back. After this, we're going to play a quick commercial, and then we'll be back for some more news.
Finding the right CBD product for you can be tough. Just CBD has you covered. We offer the highest quality, most consistent CBD gummies on the market, with soothing 100% organic CBD in every mouth-watering gummy. All of our products are lab certified and made in the United States using organically grown hemp. Each of our gummies gives you between 8 and 25 milligrams of soothing CBD. Enjoy all the benefits of CBD in our amazing line of gummies with Just CBD.
By now, most people are aware of the Making the Taliban Great Again billboards in Pennsylvania featuring President Joe Biden because of his mismanagement of the Afghanistan withdrawal. But the slogan took on more of a meaning this month when a documentary filmmaker, Ami Horowitz, went to the University of California in Berkeley to test his stunt pitch of funding the Taliban to kill Americans. The Taliban has been declared an international terrorist organization by many countries, and the United States is one of those countries. As a radical jihadist organization, the Taliban disagrees with Western ways, even the ways of liberal college students, especially if they're female. But Berkeley students did not mind donating to the group, even when presented with the idea that the funding would be used to attack Americans abroad and in the homeland, or to strike back at America for the retaliatory response after the 9/11 attacks. What the hell are they teaching kids at colleges that young adults would want to have Americans killed? Horowitz went to Berkeley just to pull a stunt and was shocked at the response he received, where students pledged $5 to $50 to fund the Taliban to perpetrate the attacks, specifically on Americans. A cameraman even questioned if the students were actors due to how bewildered he was. Even when confronted with details of how the Taliban would use the funds to attack Americans and America, the college students offered their support, and even some donated to the cause. Little do they understand is just what the Taliban has done and what it's doing in Afghanistan, where the girls and young women are kidnapped and sold into sex trade or forced to marry. The Taliban tortures and kills opponents and all infidels that fall into that category, including Berkeley students. So are they indoctrinated with liberal views? They do not even see the dangers to themselves. I'm going to play just a little bit of this video so you can see how batshit crazy these kids in Berkeley are.
I'm trying to raise money for the Taliban. We're trying to raise money for the Taliban. Tax deductible.
I know.
You know, and America's destroying the world, and we want to secure it for a strike against the American homeland. In 2001.
$5. 5?
Okay, that would be great.
5? Yeah.
5 is, that would, if you could do that, it'd be great.
Sure.
In our first story today, I think it's very important that we lead off with this. A former camera operator for ABC, NBC, and CNN has been arrested for threatening to kill Matt Gaetz. A longtime camera operator for liberal news networks, ABC, CNN, and NBC, among other outlets, was arrested last week for threatening to kill Matt Gaetz and his family just days after the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol. Meanwhile, another man who recently threatened Gaetz is on the streets after the Department of Justice blocked the Capitol Police's recommendation for arrest. Now, you may think that this is because, Matt Gaetz actually said this on the Congress floor last week. And unfortunately, the person that was arrested, this Emmy Award-winning liberal cameraman for CNN, MSNBC, or NBC News and ABC, is not the same guy that Matt Gaetz was referencing in this. Apparently, shortly after January 6th, this man, Eugene Gene Hulsman, he's 58 years old from the Los Angeles area. Apparently, he called Matt Gaetz' office and said, tell MG to watch his back, tell him to watch his children. I'm coming for him. I'm going to effing kill him. I'm going to put a bullet in you, and I'm going to put a bullet in one of your effing kids too. Unbelievable. Last Wednesday, Gaetz on the House floor described threats made against him by another individual who threatened to kill him over Twitter and who had traveled to Washington, D.C. in order to do so. Gaetz claimed the Department of Justice declined to arrest the individual, even though the Capitol Police allegedly recommended doing so. Gaetz told Politico that he believes the comments prompted the arrest, but the case he described on the floor in the earlier episode mentioned in the indictments are not related. They're two separate people who threatened to kill him. An indictment was issued in May, and now it's been unsealed a week after my criticism. If they took our security seriously, they would arrest all of the people who violate federal law and the threats to kill us, not just some of them. I think that the Department of Justice is biased against Republicans. You think? I think it's pretty clear. Threats against members of Congress are typically prioritized ever since Republican Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana was shot at a congressional baseball game practice by a supporter of Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders of Vermont in 2017. The Department of Justice, through the FBI, was quick to round up hundreds of people in the wake of the riot at the Capitol, causing many pundits and lawmakers to ask why an investigation and arrest of alleged suspects in the threats against Gates took so long. A spokesperson for the U.S. Attorney's Office at a court hearing in Los Angeles on Friday said that Hulsman was released by a federal magistrate judge on a $20,000 bond and is scheduled to appear before another magistrate judge in Pensacola this week on Friday. So we're going to have to follow that. Earlier today in the House here, or the Senate hearing, oversight of the Department of Justice, I think it was on the committee by the Judiciary. I believe it was a senator from Arizona. I don't remember. She was describing threats that were made to a Democrat senator, I believe, or maybe it was a Republican senator, and where the person threatened to kill the senator's children as well. And they asked why the Department of Justice isn't doing more. Garland just gave some roundabout answer because he doesn't believe in actually giving any answers about anything because, well, he just sucks at his job and he is a there's no nice words for it, so I'm not even going to say them. In another telling sign that the crisis in Afghanistan is not over, an American from San Diego, California, who is stranded in Afghanistan with his wife, penned a heartbreaking letter to Joe Biden, pleading with him to help get them home. The letter, whose author remains hidden, was released by released to the White House by Representative Darrell Issa, Republican out of California. The letter goes on. Says, "I am pleading with you as a fellow proud American, as a husband, to help my wife and I get home from Afghanistan." It comes after a chaotic and badly botched U.S. military withdrawal from Afghanistan at the hands of Joe Biden and his administration. In August, 13 troops were killed in an ISIS-K explosion in front of the Kabul airport amidst a turbulent attempt to evacuate fleeing Afghans and American citizens. In addition to the 13 U.S. service members, over 20 were injured, and going beyond that, 190 civilians were killed. There's reports coming out of Afghanistan. Granted, you're not seeing as much anymore as we were when the whole thing was going on, but there are reports that the Taliban is just running rampant there, which is kind of what everyone suspected. That initially, when the United States government pulled out of Afghanistan, they said there were roughly 100 Americans that were on the ground. Since that time, we've pulled out over 135 Americans, which is more than the number. And then, according to Phil Mattingly, the State Department confirmed to congressional staff last Thursday that it's in touch with 363 American citizens who are still trapped in Afghanistan. Now, it's crazy what's going on there and the fact that nobody cares. Now, this letter that was penned to Joe Biden is a heartfelt letter. It goes on to say, "We understood early on that one issue was my wife's immigration status. She has been waiting for her green card interview since 2019. We understand that we will have to continue the process in a third country before we can come home and have completed all the e-visa requirements as directed by the Department of State. We simply do not understand why we were not called for the flight on Monday, and the DOS cannot explain to us or to Congressman Issa. The information we've received from the Department of State is not consistent with what's actually happening. They continue to use WhatsApp to communicate with us, which is evidenced by the blackout last week as not secure or a reliable means of communication." The guy goes on to say, "I regretfully do not know whether to trust the Department of State with our life and safety or turn to other means to escape. This is not a position I would wish on anyone, and certainly not to American citizens." Issa had harsh words for the Biden administration in light of the letter. He slammed President Biden, saying, "Throughout these efforts, we have seen the worst of the Biden administration's disorganized and ineffective efforts to bring our people home. No American should beg for their president to bring them home from a dangerous foreign land, and yet that's exactly what this member of our community and so many other American citizens may feel forced to do. Shame on the White House for its betrayal of our fellow citizens." Nobody's really going to know what's going to happen with these people that are stranded overseas. We know that veterans groups and ex-special force operators and all these other people are trying to get people out. The State Department is trying to take credit where they can get credit. And unfortunately, the media is not focused on this anymore. They're not focused. The mainstream media is not focused on the plight of the people that are still trapped overseas. They're more focused on covering the insurrection, or the Capitol riots. Let's not even call it an insurrection. It's hard when you read mainstream media all day. That's the approach that they keep taking is that it was an insurrection, and especially now with all the new evidence that's coming out, this whole Revolver article about Ray Epps and just how deeply involved this guy was in this whole thing. It's very, very concerning that this is even happening, and the fact that we have a January 6th commission and we have all this stuff, and yet we have Americans that are trapped overseas. I mean, it's just mind-boggling when you really look at everything that's going on now. Like, look at the major news stories of this week. You have it depends on what news source. So if you're, hold on. Let's fix it. Okay. If you're listening to liberal news sources, you're only going to hear about, Steve Bannon. You're only going to hear about, Department of Justice stuff. You're not going to hear about, the fact that thousands of migrants are marching to the United States border from in Mexico after overpowering Mexican special police that were trying to keep them out of their country. We're not going to hear about that. You're not going to hear about the plight of Americans that are trapped overseas. You're not going to hear about the incredible gun crime rates that are going on throughout the country. You're not going to hear about any of those things because, well, it's not fitting. Speaking of gun crime, I think this next story is one that you guys really, really should listen to. Another story we're going to talk about today is this article that came out in Town Hall. It was an editorial by Kentucky Republican Thomas Mass. He's a congressman. And I'm going to read it in its entirety because apparently the Democrats are trying to push through this red flag bill, and it's extremely dangerous. And I think it's important that people fully understand, because the way media reports something versus what is actual in reality happening with our in our legislature is quite disconcerting, to say the least. But if you didn't know, everyone wants to stop dangerous people from getting guns. To some, the obvious solution lies in red flag laws, also called extreme risk protection orders, that enable an easy confiscation of weapons. The expansion of entitlements bill before Congress already contains $2.5 billion in incentives for states to adopt these laws, but the House Judiciary Committee, of which the authors is a member, will vote on a federal bill on Wednesday. The votes will be along party lines, but it isn't as if Democrats care about stopping violence and Republicans don't. You would never know from the media coverage that the opposite is actually true. All states in the federal government already have laws on the books that deal with people who are a danger to themselves and others. These laws are commonly known as Baker Act statutes, although they go by different names in different states. They allow police, doctors, and family members to have someone held for a 72-hour mental health examination based upon a simple reasonableness test, merely an educated guess or hunch. These laws focus on mental illness and require that mental health care experts evaluate the individual. If a person can't afford a lawyer, the public defender is provided. While judges choose to involuntarily commit individuals who they believe are dangerous to themselves or others, there's a broad range of other less extreme options that involve monitoring mental care. But instead of using these laws, 17 states have now adopted red flag laws. 13 states adopted them since 2018 after the infamous Parkland, Florida high school shooting. While red flag laws are discussed as mental health measures and often promoted to prevent suicide, only one state's law even mentions mental illness. None of the states require that mental health experts be involved in evaluating the person. The only option is given to judges is to take away a person's gun. When faced with legal bills that can easily amount to $10,000 for a hearing, and the worst that can happen is their guns taken away, few people find that it makes sense to fight red flag laws. Under red flag laws, initial firearms confiscation require just a reasonable suspicion to seize those guns. Judges will initially confiscate a person's guns on the basis of a written complaint. While hearings take place weeks or a month later, courts overturn a third of the initial orders. But since few defendants have legal representation, the actual error rate is undoubtedly much higher. When people pose a clear danger to themselves or others, they should be confined to a mental health facility. If someone is really suicidal, simply taking away his gun won't solve the problem anyway. Guns are one tool for inflicting harm, but gun control advocates want it to make it appear as if taking guns away solves everything. Red flag laws harm people who need help. Absent such laws, a person contemplating suicide might speak to a friend or family member and be dissuaded from that dire course of action. With the laws in place, individuals may fear that confiding in someone will result in a report to the authorities. They may end up losing their ability to defend themselves or their loved ones. Police officers also often experience depression on the job. Too many may worry about these laws being applied to them as well, which may lead to the loss of the livelihoods. Police may end up bottling up their feelings. Red flag laws also let the government take firearms away from people who have been arrested but not convicted of crimes. Even simple complaints without arrest have been enough for some judges. That seems like a violation of the constitutional right to due process. But who cares, right? Gun control advocates have resisted making this policy explicit in the laws, presumably out of a fear that codifying suspension of due process would create problems in the courts. Despite all these costs, the evidence show no benefit from red flag laws. Data from 1970 through 2017 doesn't show any corresponding reduction in murder, suicide, mass public shootings, robbery, aggravated assault, or burglary rates. Lives are not saved by red flag laws. Given the civil protections built into the current mental health examination laws, let's make use of these protections instead of enacting new far-reaching measures that will confiscate guns instead of addressing the real underlying issues. The facilities need more money. Let's redirect the resources that are now being wasted on the administration's red flag laws. It's pretty crazy when you think about it, and I thought it was important for people to understand what is going on in this country and why it's so important for people to pay attention to these laws. These little hearings, that's why we cover them every day. These little hearings are extremely important because you're not going to be able to pay attention to all this stuff. And granted, there's not a lot that could be done anyway. If they're going to vote to pass something and it's going to be upon party lines and the Democrats have a majority, it's going to happen right now. But the thing is, you can hold your legislators accountable for when they are, but not doing their job or the job that we're elected to and not speaking out enough about these things, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to read that whole thing, the whole article. You guys can find that on townhall.com. We will be right back. Representative Cohen today made a weird statement, and we're going to disprove it. We're going to call this our fact check of the day, okay? But here's the video, and then, we'll show him some examples.
Show me a case, please. We didn't have them in Memphis, where a good man or woman with a gun protected and stopped the use of a weapon. That canard doesn't occur. That just dog won't hunt.
Now, you may be saying to yourself, well, of course there's examples. There's, in fact, in the past week and a half, I think there's been 2. The Penn Mall shooting stopped with a good guy with a gun. The workplace shooting that took place in Wisconsin this week stopped by a good guy with a gun, or a good guy with a shotgun, actually. But let's just keep going. In 2007, a former cop and volunteer security worker, Janine Assam, saved the day at the New Life Church in Colorado Springs, Colorado. Thousands of people were exiting from Sunday Mass that day as a shooter opened fire. However, Assam ran towards the line of fire, killing the shooter and saving countless lives. But I mean, who's keeping track? Alton Nolan of Moore, Oklahoma, was charged with first-degree murder in the gruesome beheading of a Vaughn Foods worker. His rampage was halted by Mark Vaughn, a reserve sheriff's deputy and the company's chief operating officer, who used his personal firearm to wound Nolan. I mean, that's just 2. Or 4. Let's just keep going. In Garland, Texas, 2 gunmen opened fire outside of a Prophet Muhammad cartoon drawing contest in 2015. The swift reaction by police and security at the event prevented all but 2 attackers from being killed. Prevented all but the 2 attackers from being killed. Both attackers were killed. Just crazy. In 2013, a shooter opened fire at the Prince Middle School in Atlanta, Georgia. However, after wounding only 1 student, the suspect was disarmed by an armed guard who was stationed at the school. Good guy with a gun. An 18-year-old mother saved the life of herself and her baby in Blanchard, Oklahoma. There was a knife-wielding intruder who was attempting to enter the Sarah McKinley's mobile home shortly after her husband died of lung cancer in 2012. After breaking in, McKinley fired, killing 1 suspect and scaring the other intruder off. Good girl with a gun in that instance. A 71-year-old man saved the lives of many at an internet cafe in Florida in 2012. When robbers entered the cafe with weapons, Samuel Williams pulled out his gun and scared off the suspects. Good guy with a gun. A 69-year-old grandmother protected herself and her home in Alabama in 2010 after hearing a burglar break into her house. Ethel Jones fired 3 shots, wounding and scaring off the intruder, who was later arrested by police. Good granny with a gun. In 2012, a 14-year-old boy saved himself and his younger siblings after an armed intruder entered their home. After breaking into the home and pointing a gun at the 14, 12, and 8-year-olds, the 14-year-old fired, placing the intruder in the hospital and saving his family. Good kid with a gun. Should I keep going? Sure, I will. A pregnant mother of 2 saved herself and her children after 2 intruders entered her home in Ashtabula, Ohio. After refusing to let the 2 intruders in, they broke down her back door. As they proceeded up her stairs, she shot at them, injuring 1 intruder and scaring both off until police arrived. Good girl with a gun. Good pregnant lady with a good aspiring mother with a gun. Let's just keep going. Let's keep going. A would-be robber was shot in 2006 by an employee at a media madhouse in Indiana. After the suspect entered the building holding a gun on an employee and demanding money, a second employee jumped into action, shot the suspect, saving both employees and the customers. Good employee with a gun. A 72-year-old Jan Cooper saved her life and the life of her 85-year-old World War II veteran husband who had been confined to a wheelchair. In 2013, a man was breaking into Cooper's Southern California home when the grandmother fired 1 shot from her .357 Smith & Wesson revolver and scared the burglar off. Good granny with a gun. I think that's enough examples, right? Again, this just shows how disconnected our politicians are with, real world issues every day. Good guys with guns happen. There was a shooting that took place at a police station, remember, where a police officer was executed by a white dude that pulled a gun out of a pickup. He was actually shot by a good guy with a gun who was then shot by police officers because they didn't realize that he was a good guy. But that was another example of a good guy with a gun that stopped stuff. So, Representative Cohen, you're an idiot, and maybe you should, whoever does your research, your analysts or your advisors, maybe you should fire them and get a real job. Okay? Get a real job, shitbird.
I work for a federal agency. I've been doing this job for over 23 years. When I come home from work, what's rewarding to me is that I know that I'm out there serving and protecting the citizens of the United States. My job can be dangerous. There's conflict, aggression, and sometimes life-threatening situations. On June 12th, 2018, I was patrolling near a mountain range and I heard a noise in the gravel. I turned and I saw 2 muzzle flashes. It was clear it was an ambush. I was shot 6 times. Getting shot feels like 1,000 needles penetrating your body. I felt immense heat, and then later the pain kicked in, and I had to do everything I could to save my own life. I survived because I was wearing my body armor. If not, my wife would be a widow, and my daughter wouldn't have a father. Spartan armor saved my life.
Now comes the part of the day, or the part of the show that I haven't done yet, and I think it's going to be kind of entertaining. So I'm going to do a segment where we just pull up random videos, and luckily there's social media pages that make it super easy. Libs of TikTok is one. This next video is I'm going to introduce you to Cody and her 17,000 pronouns, but I want you to pay special attention. Well, I can't even say her. What do I have to I said her pronouns, but yeah, I was wrong. But I want you to pay attention to the very last one. It said mental health and recovery. I want you to fire your mental health worker, please. Let's roll that. And then, we've got a couple of them for you. I just think this will be a fun way to end the show.
I'm Cody, pronouns em, ers, or zem, zers, or really any neo-pronouns that aren't ze, her, hers. I am a white transmasculine femme non-binary, temporarily mostly able-bodied, neurodivergent, obsessive-compulsive, chronically ill, culturally Jewish, Unitarian Universalist, non-monogamous, demi-low romantic, gray demi-bisexual, survivor of acute and complex trauma, millennial, and cat parent in mental health recovery.
Now, it's kind of funny because one of the comments on the Libs of TikTok page on Twitter was someone said, I feel bad for this person and those struggling in the same way. I do not know what happened to lead them to this, but I do not have compassion. Or I do have compassion. Well, guess what? See, I Freudian slipped there. I do not have compassion. This person is a bozo. Let's roll the next one and then talk about it.
Here's your ostinato. Terrorist, terrorist, purple for parent star. Terrorist, terrorist, purple for parent star. While some had good intentions, they all were misinformed. Now threatening violence, doxing teachers has become the norm. They come to school board meetings with lots of things to say, and they will bully, cuss, or scream if they don't get their way.
Now, that video is kind of interesting, right? Because you may... we covered hearings today. We've been hearing that teachers don't do this. Apparently, Ted Cruz retweeted this one a couple of days ago, and apparently teachers are doing it, as we just heard. This is apparently a teacher, someone that teaches children. Insane. It's insane. But you know what? There's always something crazier. Right? Something crazier.
So I'm driving home from a chiropractor appointment. I never actually had it because I left. Because here's the deal. I show up, I'm in the parking lot, call them up. Oh, you don't have to call us ahead of time. Okay. So I go in, no signs up about masks. No one's wearing masks. I got mine on, but okay. But then I see it. An advertisement for somebody running for the local school board, taped to the reception desk so everybody can see it. Bullet points are constitutional rights, freedom of choice, blah, blah, blah. Taped to the desk at a reception of a freaking doctor's office. I mean, okay, chiropractor, they're not really doctors. But still, what the hell? Why do I have to make the decision to leave the fucking office because you are an idiot? I am so fucking tired of this. Fuck you.
Oh boy, there is so much to say about this video, and you guys can't really see it. Maybe you can. At the bottom of the video, it said, F you, F your freedoms, F your entire effing ass. Like, oh my gosh, someone wants constitutional rights and this and that, and he's like, F you. Come on, dude. Come on. Isn't it amazing just how, like, dumb people can be? Isn't it amazing? And I wonder sometimes too. I'm like, do liberals watch my show when I get super heated? Like last night, I was super pissed off about the news of the kid. But rightfully so. I was pissed though, and frustrated. I'm like, do they laugh? Like when I watched this video the first time today, I just started laughing hysterically, and I'm like, how can people be so dumb? You don't believe people have the right to express themselves while you are taking the time to post a video to express yourself somewhere else. It's just the most mind-bogglingly dumb thing. It really is. Well, I've got one more for you, okay? And this one is a doozy.
So my teenagers are having a bunch of friends over tonight, and like typical moms, I'm really excited, and I've got a bunch of snacks and other stuff, but here's what I'm really excited about. So this is like our little welcome to our home, asking that everybody be respectful. We have lots of pets, but then down here, letting all their friends know if they ever need a safe place to stay, that this is one. And then I've got name tags for preferred names and pronouns. And in these little sheets for everybody to use to let us know their preferred name and pronouns they should use if speaking to their parents in case they're not out. And I'm so excited.
Now, I'll be honest. I saw that video, I think, two days ago. And I was lying in bed next to my wife, and I watched it, and then I was like, you know what? Let me get her insight on this. And so she watched the whole thing, and I'll be honest, she tried to justify it just for maybe like a millisecond, and then she's like, yeah, they're nuts. And I'm like, for one, they said my teenagers. She said my teenagers. Like, I can't even understand it no matter what. But if you think about it, like little kids, like, well, she said my teenagers. So that means that they've gone through maybe, depending on 13 years, 14 years of that kid's life, destroying everything about that kid's, self-esteem and all that. And, oh my God, can you imagine? Like and I honestly feel that if my kids attempted to go to that school or attempted to go to someone's home and their friends are like, okay, so today you got to sign this thing and here's your pronoun. And my son would be like, fuck that, I'm out. You know what I mean? He would be out. You'd be out. Anyway, that does it for our show tonight. I hope you guys enjoy the new format. Some of you may not, but that's okay because this is my show, not yours. Please, guys, visit citizenstringer.tv. We have a whole pile of content over there. We're adding new content every day. We've got new shows and all that good stuff. And we'll see you mañana. That means